Good afternoon, everybody. So the topic today will be Champagne Palmer and sustainability. I would like first to thank all the organizers for the invitation today. Pleasure to be around, and special thank as well to Laurent and Annette Varos from Varosco, who is the exclusive importer and distributor of Champagne Palmer in Hungary. So to start with, I think you just add a few figures regarding sparkling wine and champagne in general, but just to precise a little bit a few information regarding the Champagne vineyard. 34,000 hectares is in the region. Obviously, champagne is only made in the Champagne region in northeast in France. We have 5 main regions. The Montagne de Reims in the north, which is the key region for Champagne Palmer, where we will be making more than 50% of our wines is coming from the Grand Cru and Premier Cru in the Montagne de Reims. It's in the northern part. We will be talking about this specific region a bit more than the other ones, but obviously there is also the Vallée de la Marne, where at Palmer we have a bit of vineyards, the Côte des Blancs, where you will see mainly Chardonnay, which is where we are not at all at Champagne Palmer. We will have some vineyard in the Côte de Sézanne and the Côte des Bar. But the key region for us will be the Montagne de Reims, with more than 200 hectares of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay from the greatest terroir of this area. You probably know that, but champagne is about 300 million bottles per year. Half of that is consumed in France, and the UK and the US will be the most important export market, with Japan. In the UK and the US, the two of them will be drinking about 10% of the champagne production, 30 million bottles in the UK, and in the US about the same. And the US, that is a fast-growing market that will become the #1 export market very soon, already in value and soon in volume. I checked the figures regarding Hungary. You are in the 52 position in the world regarding the consumption of champagne, which could be better, but it's not that bad. If we look at 2019, which was already a record year for Hungary, it was about 122,000 bottles, and last year in 2021 you drank about 160,000 bottles. So it's in the growth. We have a great partner who makes sure that Palmer has a good position in that market share in the country. So, but yeah, so 52 position. Champagne obviously is very important in France. It's only 4% of the total of the plantation in France, but it represents 1/3 of the French export of wine in value, and 40% of the sparkling wine category in value. You probably know the varieties in Champagne, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir and Meunier, Chardonnay being the white one, Pinot Noir and Meunier the black grapes. Palmer, for us, the Chardonnay grape would be, I would say, the king or the queen. It represents about 30% of the plantation in the region. For us, it's more than 50% of our vineyard is made of Chardonnay. As I was saying, Chardonnay usually is found in the Côte des Blancs. At Champagne Palmer, our Chardonnay is coming from the Montagne de Reims, which is quite unique and unusual. We will be talking about that. And you have probably heard about 4 other grape varieties that represent less than 0.5% of the plantation in Champagne, but still exist, very old varieties. Most of them will be found in the Côte des Bar in the south, Arbanne, Petit Meslier, Pinot Gris and Pinot Blanc. Regarding Champagne Palmer, we've been established in 1947. Champagne Palmer is a cooperative technically, but is not born like any other cooperative in the Champagne region. Usually a cooperative is born to survive in the market by joining resources to build a winery, a pressing center. At Champagne Palmer, it was totally the opposite. The founders of Champagne Palmer were all champagne growers. They were all part of a club in Champagne at the beginning of the 20th century called the Grand Cru Society of Champagne. And it's only after the Second World War that they saw that the market for champagne would increase worldwide, and they had the vision that it would be smart to create one brand where they would blend their different terroirs, best terroir in Grand Cru and Premier Cru. So they were not really in the need to create one brand and to join forces, because all of them were having their winery, they were already having their pressing center, but the idea was really to create a brand. And because they only wanted to use their own grapes, they went with the cooperative format. They didn't want to buy grapes from elsewhere. That's why they were not négociants at the beginning. But it's very similar to what a grande maison, what a négociant would be today in Champagne. So 7 growers from the best cru, mainly in the Montagne de Reims at the beginning, with villages in Mailly, in Grand Cru, Verzenay, Verzy as well, Chigny-les-Roses, Lude in Premier Cru, and Trépaille and Villers-Marmery in Premier Cru Chardonnay in the Montagne de Reims. So again, the vision was to create one brand in order to blend the best terroir in Champagne and the different grapes they were having, the 7 of them. And today, if we look at the picture of Champagne Palmer, the brand continued its growth. More growers joined the company over the different decades. And today, Palmer is about 200 hectares of Grand and Premier Cru in the Montagne de Reims, but overall, it's about 400 hectares. So more than 50% of the Palmer grapes are coming from Grand and Premier Cru vineyards. With 400 hectares, we could potentially make 4 million bottles. It's not the idea. We have a proper selection made within the best terroir, trying to enrich the perfect blend. We only use the first press as well. We don't use the second presses, what we call the tie. And the idea is to continue to be quite exclusive, not becoming mainstream. We will have an exclusive distribution worldwide, mainly in on-trade plus, I would say, premium retail. So if you look at the vineyards, so this is Reims. You have Épernay around here. So Montagne de Reims is just there. Champagne Palmer will be very strong in Villers-Marmery and Trépaille for Premier Cru Chardonnay. These are the only villages in the whole Montagne de Reims that are dedicated to Chardonnay. We call the Montagne de Reims an ocean of Pinot Noir, and in this ocean of Pinot Noir, we have our 2 treasury islands of Premier Cru Chardonnay from Trépaille and Villers-Marmery. And that's what makes Palmer very special, making Chardonnay coming from these specific areas. Rest will be mainly Pinot Noir from Mailly, Verzenay in Grand Cru, Rilly-la-Montagne, Chigny-les-Roses, and Lude in Premier Cru. We are what we say global warming friendly or ready at Champagne Palmer because all these vineyards are located and north facing. So even during warm year, we will manage to have more freshness compared to the rest of the region because the vineyards will be seeing less the sun than in the Côte des Blancs or Côte de Sézanne or even in the Côte des Bars. Few words regarding some sustainable practices in the vineyards. You probably know that in Champagne we have our specific classification regarding sustainability. It's called the viticulture durable en Champagne, sustainable viticulture in Champagne, and it covers more than 100 measures about the print you can have, carbon print or water print or your print on biodiversity. And the idea is to, of course, limit as much as possible your print on these elements, having practices in the vineyard that are respecting the environment with using the water as less as possible, renewing it, treating it, using as less pesticide as possible. You have different rules to follow. And if we look at the whole region of Champagne, today you have about 15% of the Champagne vineyards that are certified sustainable viticulture in Champagne. At Champagne Palmer, it's more than 50% today, and it will be 100% for the harvest 2023. If you look at the guideline and the target of the region is to get all the vineyards in Champagne certified by 2030-2035 at Champagne-Palmer, 400 hectares, which is quite a lot. It's a communication that is made with all the growers bringing their grapes to Champagne-Palmer. Well, it is in the transition, and by the harvest next year, so in a year time, we will all these vineyards will be certified, 400 hectares. A word as well regarding our brand new winery at Champagne-Palmer that today we use only to store our reserve wines. Reserve wines is a very important element at Champagne-Palmer. You know that to make a non-vintage champagne, we use reserve wines. Well, in our Brut non-vintage, it's more than 30% of reserve wines that we use. So we are really in the need to extend our capacity of storage. And this new winery has been built a few years ago, in 2018, in order to welcome our reserve wines. It's just outside Reims, and it's one of the 2 or 3 wineries that is also certified haute qualité environnementale, high environmental quality certification. It goes along with what we are doing in the vineyards. Here the idea, and that was the word of our managing director, it was when this winery has been built, not making any compromise about the design, the practical aspect of the winery, and the fact that it would be sustainable, and it goes along what we do in the vineyard. So everything has been designed to use as much energy as possible. Everything works by gravity. Outside the winery, you have a large piece of land where we are going to introduce more insects. We have beehives as well, in order to respect the environment and to have an impact on this environment that is as small as possible. And today, only 2 or 3 wineries in Champagne received this certification. Few words about our cellar master, Xavier Berdin, who has been at Palmer for almost 20 years. It will be 20 years next year. He is working with a team of 4 other enologists. One of them is our managing director, Rémi Vervier. So the boss of Palmer is actually also a winemaker, which is great because he understands the importance of aging the wine or doing things properly rather than only the business aspect. And we have also 3 ladies. 2 of them have been here for over 20 years. So it's really a teamwork. There is no boss in the winery when it's about doing the blending at the beginning of the year. They work in close harmony, different genders, different age, to make sure to continue to be the guardians of the Palmer styles. And they really take the time, because at Palmer we don't bottle in February or March. Usually we really take the time. Time is very key for us. The time we age our wine, but the time we take as well to finish the blend, because usually we are going to bottle in May or June, so a few months after the harvest, to make sure the blend are clearly well finalized. We can start tasting our Brut Reserve, our non-vintage Brut. Few things that are important, and we always talk about the prestige cuvée in Champagne, how great is a top prestige cuvée. For us, what we consider as the most important is our non-vintage Brut, because it's always the ones that you produce the most, that you sell the most. That's the one you will see by the glass in bars and restaurants, and it's the ones that we are taking the most time to finish the blend. It's really easy to make a great wine with very small quantities, with a proper selection, only with Grand Premier Cru. But when it's about doing a blend of from 40 to 50 different crus, it's the different work. Our Brut Reserve will be made with a majority of Chardonnay, more than 50%, which is very rare, because usually the houses, they keep their Chardonnay for their top cuvées, their Blanc de Blanc, their vintage, their prestige cuvées. At Champagne-Palmer, as I was explaining, we work with more than 400 hectares, We don't make 4 million bottles, we do only 1 million. So we have enough Chardonnay to go with up to 50% and more in the blend of our Brut Reserve. All the juice that goes into the Palmer wines is only the first press, so it's the case here as well. The time on lees will be really key because, as you probably know, in Champagne we have to age a minimum 15 months to get the Champagne name on the bottle. At Champagne Palmer, our Brut non-vintage, Brut Reserve, will be aged for minimum 4 years on the lees. So what you are tasting today is made with a 2016 base, with about 35% of reserve wine from the 3 previous harvests, 15, 14, and 13. So you have quite a good proportion of wine in this glass that is almost 10 years old. You know, we can make a vintage in Champagne after 3 years of aging. Here you have a non-vintage, our entry level, even if we don't make entry-level wines at Palmer, but at least that's our classic non-vintage. And in this one, you already have more than 4 years on lease. Something very fresh. Chardonnay will bring you the freshness. You have the purity of the first press. And of course, the time on lees and the reserve wines will bring you a brioche, creamy texture that is so typical of the Palmer style. Freshness and richness. And the wines that has been receiving top critics, top notation, quite everywhere. 3 years in a row gold medal at the drinks business. Not the previous year, but the year before, it has been elected the world champion best Brut non-vintage sparkling wine. So all sparkling wine and champagne together at the Champagne and Sparkling Wine World Championships, held by Tom Stevenson and Essi Avelan and Georgi Marcus as well, who you know very well in Hungary, ranking so our Brut Reserve as the best non-vintage Brut you can find in the market. So a style that is really about Palmer. You taste it today in bottle format. Of course, we make it in larger format. What is unique as well at Palmer is we don't do any transfer method for the larger format, which means that our Methuselah and above, Nebuchadnezzar, are actually aged in the original large format. And for that, we have to wait much more longer time. So in bottle, it's aged for 4 years minimum. In Magnum, 6 years. In Jeroboam, close to 8 years. And for Methuselah and Nebuchadnezzar, 15 liters bottle, we wait at least 10 years. We can move on to rosé, because I'm watching the time. Rosé is as well quite a unique one at Champagne Palmer. We are making blended rosé, so it's not a rosé de saignée. We actually make red wines that we are going to blend with white wine. But what is very unique, again, is the way we make our red wine. The blend of the rosé, it's the white wine, which is about 92% of the blend, is exactly the same blend than what you have in your glass at the moment, Brut Reserve. In this blend of Brut Reserve, we add 8% of red wine. And this red wine is made with Pinot Noir from the Côte des Bar in the southern part of the Champagne region. And it's made with a Solera system we started about 40 years ago. So it's not exactly the same method like for sherry with different tanks and the pyramid. It will be more like a perpetual vat system. We started making red wine in the 70s, vinifying in oak barrel, old Burgundy oak barrel for 9 months. Then we transfer it to a stainless steel tank. And every year we are going to take sub-red wine from the tank and we are going to top up with the red wine coming from the following year. So today we have stainless steel tanks with about 40 different years blended together. And you will see it in your glass. You have a rosé that is quite coppery in color because of the very old red wine into it. There is still a small fraction of red wine that is 20, 30, 40 years old, and that gives you the coppery color. In terms of taste, what is very interesting is you will have two worlds that usually don't coexist together. It's the universe of fruit and the universe of spice. Usually you have a fruity rosé or a spicy rosé. Here you will have both. You will have the very old red wines that will bring you a lot of spiciness, ginger, vanilla character, and you will have cinnamon as well, and you will have the younger red wines that will give you the fruit, raspberry, strawberry, cherry, and it's really a rosé that will be sitting between a vintage rosé and a non-vintage rosé, spice and fruit. We say that in this Solera tank, the old wine is educating the young wine, and the young wine is feeding the old one. A rosé that has been named as well in a great competition, one of the top rosé you can find in Champagne, 95 points at decanter, and last year part of the best rosé you could find in the market available with 93 points, obviously in good company as you can see. So a very unique rosé, and we used to have more percentage of red wine into it. The idea was to come back with something that could be enjoyed as an aperitif. That's why we decreased a few years ago from 12% of red wine to 8%, and today we have something that is fruity, spicy, but still very, very fresh. Just wanted to add a few words about the Blanc de Blanc, because it's really a specialty at Champagne Palmer. Making a Blanc de Blanc, a Chardonnay, a champagne that is coming from the Montagne de Reims is very unique. It's aged for 5 years. If you have the opportunity to taste it in the future, I encourage you, because it's very different from the typical Blanc de Blanc we find in champagnes that are made in the Côte des Blancs. You have more minerality, I would say more finesse in the Montagne de Reims. Not saying that it's better, but it's definitely a different style that is creamy as well, buttery because of the time we age it for. It's aged 5 years in bottle and about 10 years in Magnum. One of the favorite Blanc de Blanc according to Tom Stevenson, and last year as well elected a world champion Blanc de Blanc at the Champagne and Sparkling Wine World Championship. And I will conclude with a few words regarding sustainability, this time in terms of the packaging. We've been talking about sustainability obviously in the vineyard and the winemaking, but we went as well a step further regarding the packaging with working in association with a company based in Sweden and another one locally based in the Ardennes, in Champagne-Ardenne, to develop a gift box that would be 100% eco-friendly, fully recyclable, used with recycling paper, and that would actually look premium, because that's all the challenge in the champagne industry. Of course, we want to go more and more into sustainable practices, but at the end of the day, we want you to buy or to select a champagne in the shop, or to buy it to offer to your friends. So it has to be premium and beautiful. And it has been made possible thanks to this project. You see here a gift box of our new vintage called Grand Terroir, where we actually have papers that has been embossed using as well vegetal ink. And what comes is you have a gift box that you can fully recycle. You can even compost it. So it's a gift box that is fully respectful on the environment. We started already 2 years ago with our prestige cuvée called Amazon de Palmer. So on the one on Grand Terroir, it's embossed. You have basically you can see the terroir of the Montagne de Reims on it. It's very chic. And on the Amazon one, you can actually see the vines that is embossed, not dig, but coming out of the gift box. So few ideas that we see more and more in Champagne. Houses like Perrier-Jouët has been very good as well with this kind of a new technology, and it's where we need to go, and I guess we also have no choice to go into that direction. It's a hot topic in Champagne, and Palmer has always been one of the pioneers in this topic. So I'm just going quickly because I'm running out of time. So this is to show you as chic it can look, even working with materials that are not wood or plastic, for example, or metal. And to finish with Champagne Palmer, I've been talking about the thyme as one of the most important ingredients at Palmer, the time for aging our wine, the time we take as well to finish our blend, the time that when we use our reserve wines. We also have access to assortment of very old vintages that we keep in our cellars and that we release every year under allocation for our good customers. And it's also one of the treasures of our cellars in Champagne, and particularly at Palmer. Not that many houses have access to old vintages like this, and this is what we give as accessible in the different markets, including the Hungarian market. So to sum up, key messages during this masterclass at Champagne Palmer. So we focus on the Grand and Premier Cru terroir in Champagne with more than 50% of our production, only using the first pressing juice. Environment as one of our guidelines as well, the sustainability action. And regarding the way we make our wine, time is always at the center of how we make our wines, from the reserve wines to the time onlys and up to the back vintages and the larger format we make without transferring. And that's something that really sums up what Champagne Palmer is about. A few words from Essie Avelan. Palmer & Co is a shining star in Champagne. In keeping with the cellar philosophy, Palmer has time. The wines are aged for an exceptional long time. Some more accolades. Distributions that will be made worldwide as exclusive as I was explaining before. And yeah, I'm here today in Hungary, very happy, but you're also welcome to come to Champagne. We have a wonderful guest house that is accessible for anybody who wants to book a night there, and where you can also enjoy our champagne in the Champagne region with our own chef de cuisine. It's also something that I wanted to include in the presentation because the Champagne region in the past has not been very good at doing enoutourism. It's something that is very key, I think, in the wine industry, and it's something we have developed a few years ago with the Domaine du Chalet at Champagne Palmer, giving the possibility to people to come and experience a great time in Champagne while discovering our champagne. Thank you very much for your time.